What's up, everybody? This video is probably going to get divided up into multiple parts, but this is a good starting point. I was watching a video the other day called The 10 Most Overrated Quarterbacks in NFL History from Total Pro Sports. Please go subscribe to them. I want to be clear that I'm not making this to bash them. I more wanted to make this video because it got me thinking. What's the purpose of quarterback record if it's going to get downplayed because of the supporting cast around him, or if it's just going to be used against a quarterback that puts up really good production but doesn't win? There's no consistency on when this so-called stat should or should not be used. The video starts out by ranking Carson Palmer as the 10th most overrated quarterback of all time, and one of his arguments is that Palmer only won one playoff game in his career. He said the same thing about Tony Romo, who won 2 playoff games in his career. Okay, he brought up other points, but those were the 2 things that stood out to me. But just moments later, he gets to Eli Manning, and he basically says that Eli's not really that good if you take away the Super Bowls. He then used his stats against him, arguing that Eli has only thrown 30-plus touchdown passes 3 times in a season. So by that logic, Ben Roethlisberger literally has no choice but to be on this list, because he only passed for 30-plus touchdowns in a season 3 times. And again, if we take away those Super Bowls, how good has Ben really? His other part of the argument was that Eli throws a lot of interceptions. But again, it's not like Roethlisberger has been immaculate when it comes to taking care of the football. But do you see what I mean? There's no consistency in this stat. One of the most polarizing quarterbacks in football stat world is Joe Namath, and he was placed number 1 on this guy's list. As a person that uses lots of stats when I make my videos, I can understand why he would put Namath on the list. But I disagree. That's another video for another time though. Put some respect on the quarterbacks from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But he says that the only reason Namath is really remembered for being anything is because of his Super Bowl III guarantee. Then, of course, he uses the stats and how Namath threw more interceptions than touchdowns, and his win-loss record wasn't that beautiful. The stats that Namath put up in that time frame were really good when you factor in the era and you factor in that Namath didn't get to play with the Mel Blount rule. I'm getting carried away with that, but like I said, that's a video for another time. So in the same video, he said quarterbacks were overrated because their stats didn't amount to anything, but then he turns around and says that quarterbacks that won were overrated because their stats showed that they weren't that good. When it comes to Palmer, Romo, and Eli, in my personal opinion, they aren't all that different, and their production wasn't all that much different. They were all very good quarterbacks. If I was an NFL GM doing a draft with 2 other NFL GMs, and these 3 were my options, and I was picking last, I'd be perfectly content with whoever I ended up with. That's beside the point though. But I want to ask you all, how do you judge a quarterback with that logic? How can you judge a quarterback when you're not going to give them any credit for winning, but you're going to blame them a lot for why their team didn't win? Again, there's no consistency in what quarterback record should be used for. I mean, you're not going to give him credit for winning, and you're going to blame him for losing. So what's the point of the stat? Now again, please don't mistake this for me just coming out and bashing these guys. It's not just this video that does this. I see this all the time on Twitter, YouTube comments, or even when you just watch Undisputed or First Take or whatever sports show you watch. There's no consistency in how quarterback records should or shouldn't be used. I guess the only time it's ever useful is when it works in favor of the quarterback that you are arguing for. A perfect example of people only using quarterback record as long as it favors them is the Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers debate. The most accomplished quarterback to ever play football versus arguably the most talented quarterback to ever play football. The debate is literally the perfect example of how quarterback record is only a useful stat as long as it favors the quarterback that you're arguing for. I'm not just talking in terms of how quarterback record will favor Tom Brady. I'm also talking about how there's a lot of people that will discredit Brady's record because he's had such a good supporting cast, and then they'll blame everything around Aaron Rodgers for why he hasn't won as often. You want to take all of the credit away from Tom Brady because he has had a good supporting cast, and then in the same breath you want to blame the team surrounding Rodgers because he has no help? Like what? So supporting cast matters? Quarterbacks that win have good supporting casts? Boy, I never would have guessed that. It's almost like you really don't think it's a real stat. I mean, of course it's a real stat if you're in the Tom Brady crowd, but it's kind of a fake stat if you're in the Aaron Rodgers crowd. The two faces of this debate that perfectly show what I'm talking about are Rob Parker, who represents the Aaron Rodgers crowd, and Skip Bayless, who represents the Tom Brady crowd. I'm not even going to hide my feelings about Rob Parker. He's a total hypocrite when it comes to the Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers debate in particular. To him, wins and losses are everything. No, like, they are everything to him. Except when the wins and losses don't favor the quarterback that he's arguing in favor of. He's also the perfect example of what I mentioned earlier about how can you judge a quarterback when you're not going to give him any credit for why he wins, but you're going to blame him entirely for why he loses. Let's really talk about this. Someone corrects me if I'm wrong, but if I recall correctly, Rob Parker blamed Tom Brady 100% for why the Patriots lost to the Eagles in Super Bowl 52. And I feel like I remember him saying, "It's about points, not yards." Okay, so 33 points isn't enough, I guess. I could forgive this, but then just a couple of years later, the Packers got thumped in the NFC Championship game by the 49ers. Surely Aaron Rodgers had something to do with that, right? Well, the first thing Rob Parker blamed was the Packers' inability to stop the run. What? Brady put up 33 points and you gave him the majority of the blame for the loss. Aaron Rodgers put up only 20 points in a game that you gave the majority of the blame to the defense. Do y'all see what I mean? Where's the consistency in that, Rob Parker? The first thing you blame is Aaron Rodgers' defense in a game that the Packers got down 27-0. That is a complete team effort when you are down 4 possessions at halftime. And then the first person you blame for why the Patriots lost a Super Bowl is Tom Brady when he got his team a fourth quarter lead just for the defense to cough it up. What's the point of quarterback record if you're not going to give him any credit for why he wins, but you're going to blame him entirely for why he loses? Like I said though, this is going to have to be divided up into multiple parts. But don't make any mistake about it. Quarterbacks that win have good supporting casts. Aaron Rodgers hasn't always had the best defensive supporting cast, but his offensive supporting cast has been very exceptional. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I don't use quarterback record ever, but when you want to rank a quarterback, record is almost irrelevant. There's a million things that affect a football game. Offensive line, defense, running game, your coaching. Those things all affect the football game. Quarterbacks that win have good help. That includes Tom Brady. Now, I want to clear some things up about the whole Aaron Rodgers thing and how I feel. I don't want to make it sound like I'm bashing Aaron Rodgers. I'm bashing Rob Parker more than I'm bashing Aaron Rodgers. Yes, Aaron Rodgers does not deserve all the blame for why his teams have not always won as often as the Patriots have won. But Tom Brady deserves a lot of credit for why the Patriots have won Super Bowls at the same time. Also, I don't want to act like I've never called out a quarterback that gets overrated for his winning, because there are quarterbacks that are on dominant rosters that get too much credit for the winning. But one thing that you'll probably never see me do is discredit a quarterback's production and just say his stats meant nothing, whether it be Matt Ryan or whether it be Kirk Cousins or multiple other quarterbacks. When I look at quarterback record, I like to see why they win or lose, not just that they win or lose. You know, I would rank Russell Wilson as a top 10 quarterback, whether he had a Super Bowl win or whether he didn't have a Super Bowl win, whether he had a winning record or whether he had a losing record. Russell Wilson is good because he's good. He's not good just because of his winning. That's part of why he's good, but that's 5% of what makes Russell Wilson good. At least in my opinion. But yeah, this is a good starting point. This is generally Detroit Sports Channel, and if you're into Detroit sports, there are lots of Detroit Sports channels linked in the description of this video. And you won't be disappointed when you go check them out. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to do multiple parts on this. I don't know how many parts, but this definitely needs multiple parts. But yeah, thank you all for watching.